All right. All right. As I said before, I'm the opening act for Alicia Keys today. So thanks for coming out. You've been a great audience. Believe me when I say that. I'm Greg Tuhill. I'm a professor at the Heinz College. God bless you. I'm a professor at the Heinz College at Carnegie Mellon University. The Heinz College is the home of information systems and public policy at the university, but I'm also director of CERT at the Software Engineering Institute. So the original computer emergency response team, founded in 1988, but think of us now, years later, as a cybersecurity engineering and resilience team. 35 years ago when we were founded, it was stop the Morris worm from doing bad things. We were, very reactive. Now, we're trying to get left of the boom and help better protect national security, national prosperity, critical infrastructure, make the cyber world a safer, more trustworthy and assured place. So today, what I'd like to do with you is share with you a research project that we have in flight right now, which I've called a National Initiative for Cybersecurity Advancement. During the course of during the course of this week's RSA session, we've had a lot of folks out there that said, hey, cybersecurity, the state of cybersecurity is strong. By what measure? As I take a look at it, there's some really good indicators out there that we are doing things better, like information sharing. We've got some better definition as far as policies, but we still have a lot of things that are broken and need a lot of work. We've got workforce gaps that are crushing us. We got complexity that's killing the folks that are out there trying to make things work. We continue to have malicious code, malicious actors. There's a lot of things that we need to work on. And as part of the effort at Carnegie Mellon and the CERT, we want to work like we did back in 1988. It wasn't just the folks at Carnegie Mellon that helped stop the Morris worm. We put together the team from all around. Anybody who could help all got together, stopped the Morris worm from doing total destruction of what was then ARPANET. We need to, as a Cyber Neighborhood Watch, come together to make things better. So today, I'm here to give you a progress check on this research project that we're doing, but I'm also going to ask for your help. And I'm going to give you some homework assignments. All right? Now, some of you in the audience have been students of mine in the past. Those who haven't, I do demand audience participation. I will come off this stage if I have to. Don't make me, okay? Yeah, you laugh. Randy, will I? Yeah, I will. Okay, so on with the show, shall we? And by the way, I do ask, if you have a question, don't wait till the end. Go to the mic, because this is being recorded as evidence, and we will not do pattern recognition against your voice on the recording. There's no recording of imagery, thank God. So if you do have a question, hightail it towards a mic, and I'll answer the question in a timely manner as opposed to wait till the end. Are you guys good with that? Okay. Now I'm going to do a moving target like I do if you come to Carnegie Mellon. And it is pronounced Carnegie, not Carnegie. Yes, that's how Andy Carnegie, who when he died was the richest man in the world, all those libraries, all those museums, came to the United States as a 10-year-old boy from Scotland, built an empire. Carnegie Mellon. And by the way, that's me. You can see I do have certifications, so I'm going to give myself credit for CPEs while I'm doing this, okay? Hopefully you will too. Here's proof that I am a college professor. I follow the rules with a disclaimer. There, you've had enough time to read that. And here's proof that I'm a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, because this is the Carnegie Mellon Insert disclaimer. I hope you've enjoyed my slides. Any questions on these? All right, so what are we trying to do in leading this research project that I'm going to try roping you into as a contributor? We want to build a research agenda that actually leads to substantive improvements in the trustworthiness of the ecosystem. That's a pretty clear problem statement, I hope. Anybody disagree with this? This is one thing here in America, Democrats and Republicans should agree with, that we want trustworthiness in the cyber ecosystem. But how do you get there? Well, let me share with you some of the things that we've been doing and some of the things that we've learned since we started this up last year. And by the way, I thought we'd be done by now, but some of the problems we found were even deeper than we thought. So we still have some more work to do. Now, with any research project, you have to have a taxonomy on how you're going to tackle the problem. So we're doing a taxonomy based on what is called the Heilmeyer Catechism. Does anybody know who Dr. Heilmeyer was? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Bueller? Christoph, you know who Heilmeyer was. You want to share? Well, thank you. For you folks in the back, I don't know if you heard Christoph. What Christoph said, and my good friend, the doctor from Germany, Heilmeyer, he was one of the leaders within what is now known as DARPA, the Defense Applied Research Projects Agency. And Dr. Heilmeyer, he would throw people out of his office that were looking to do research unless they could answer all of these questions. So he was the guy who had control of the checkbook. He was the chief technology officer of the Advanced Research Projects Agency. And we, to this day, follow the Heilmeyer Catechism as a disciplined approach in doing research. And if you think about this, you probably, any of you who have been students or doing research, you may use a modified version of this catechism and not even know who Heilmeyer is. But because my organization is actually sponsored by the US Department of Defense, the Software Engineering Institute is, we like to do this because, first of all, it's a good methodology for solving problems. What are you trying to solve? State the objective. Take a look at the current state and the limitations. We've done a lot of that. And we, as part of our research, we've surveyed the entire landscape of different products, capabilities, et cetera. What's new in the approach that we're proposing? You'll see that in a subsequent slide. Who cares and what difference does it make? How many folks out here, just audience participation, how many of you out here are happy with the state of cybersecurity? Anybody? Bueller? Bueller? All right, I don't see a single hand raised. So the reason that you're here probably is tied into the fact that you think there's improvements that we collectively need to make. Is that a fair assumption? Okay, I'm seeing heads nod here in the United States. That means, yes, you're in agreement. I'm glad with that. Who cares and what difference does it make? I submit, not only do we in this room care, but everybody, every citizen in every country in the world really cares about having a safe, trustworthy, and assured cyber ecosystem. I double dog dare you to find a job in modern society today that does not rely in some part on that cyber ecosystem. If you're going to go out for dinner tonight, that food gets to the table, not just because of the great chefs that we have here, but also the distribution networks, the farmers, those folks. Even the farmers are using cyber-enabled technology to get the maximum use out of the land they have. We've got a higher yield in agriculture than we ever have had in the history of mankind because cyber-enabled technology is helping the farmers become scientists, true scientists, and integrating automation into farming. The logistic from the field to the table is all because of cyber. So, what are the risks? Well, the risks, there's plenty of risks with this research, including we'll publish a report, we'll make recommendations, and nobody will adopt them. I'm hoping that by being here, you'll be evangelists towards these things, and you'll help folks think differently about cyber with some of the constructs and some of the things that we are discovering. How long is this going to take? Well, longer than we thought. We thought we'd be done by now. However, we came to the conclusion back around the winter holidays that we had more work to be done. So I'm going to give you an update today rather than a conclusion. And then, how do we check for success? That's part of the things that we are doing right now to make sure that we have not only the evidence-based research, but we also have the performance measures to show signs of improvement. And in each of the 7 areas that we're going to show you, we are working on identifying those measurable measures of success and merit as we do our research, as every researcher should. Oh, I hit the wrong button, but I am trainable. See how I recovered on that? So, what is the cyber ecosystem? All too often, we get target fixation on hardware and software. And as you take a look at a lot of the dry research papers that are out there, some of them will take a look, oh, I'm only going to look at software, or I'm only going to look at hardware. What's novel about us? In this research project, we're looking at the wetware too, and all of it together. Why wetware? Well, it's kind of a nod to Battlestar Galactica, where, how many folks have seen Battlestar Galactica, the reboot? James Edward Olmos as the commander down. What did the Cylons call the humans? Meat sacks, okay? We're not going to call ourselves meat sacks. We're going to call ourselves wetware. Okay, thank you. It's like a dad joke. You're just affirming me. I'm going to get worse if you keep it up. All right, so I want you to think, when you think cyber ecosystem, I want you to think beyond the hardware and software. I also want you to think about the wetware. Complexity is the bane of security, and it's killing us. It's killing our workforce. Automation is supposed to reduce the amount of manpower that is needed to perform tasks. And yet, if you read the ISC Squared bulletins, and yes, I'm an ISC Squared member, I'm on the ISACA Board of Directors, I'm on the National Association of Corporate Directors Blue Ribbon Commission for Cyber. We've got workforce gaps that are out there. And depending on who you talk with, there's different composition. I will also tell you on the wetware side, we have lots of different people in the cyber village that have different skills. It is truly an interdisciplinary approach to dealing with that cybersecurity environment. We've got lawyers who are declaring themselves as cyber experts. You've got computer scientists, computer engineers, engineers of all flavors. You have physicists, you have scientists, you have liberal arts folks, you have artists. Everybody contributes to that cyber community. And by the way, anybody who declares themselves an expert probably isn't. So be very cautious out there. And those who are true experts are the ones who others call an expert because of performance. By the way, did you like that slide? Was that a good one? Okay, I made it myself. Every plan has to have some planning assumptions. There's some things that you got to think about up front anytime you're going to do a research project too. And I want to go through these real quick for you, and I recognize you know how to read, so I'm not going to read the slides as a general rule for you, but I want to highlight some things. First of all, on that first one, a lot of folks don't think about the telephone systems and transmission systems and radio frequency, communications, satellite communications and like as part of the cyber ecosystem. They generally think of enterprise IT, but even with enterprise information technologies, unless you're connected, you're nowhere. Same thing with AI, the artificial intelligence systems that have kind of dominated this week here in San Francisco and RSA. AI systems, aren't they software consuming massive amounts of data on some really powerful computing platforms that are all networked together in a meshed cloud environment? I think so. As a matter of fact, I venture to say that AI vulnerabilities are cyber vulnerabilities. And earlier this week, Tom and I were in a briefing where we opened up the event by talking about how we've created last summer the AI CERT, the Security Incident Response Team for AI. That should have been recorded, so I think you can go back if you didn't go to that one. So from a planning assumption, connectivity, transmission systems, all of those are computer controlled, computer enabled. And without the connectivity, you don't have the cyber ecosystem that you enjoy today. I talked about AI and ML systems part of the cyber ecosystem. I sincerely believe that. And we're doing a tremendous amount of work at Carnegie Mellon. We have a lot of fundamental research going on. Buckle your chin straps. What you're going to see on the AI front is going to accelerate at a breathtaking rate based on what I'm seeing from my colleagues at Carnegie Mellon on the fundamental research side. I also contend, and I already touched upon this, we're an interdisciplinary activity. It's not just computer science. It's not just software engineering. There's plenty of room at the cyber banquet because we all contribute to the ecosystem. So that interdisciplinary activity can be a positive and it can be a negative. And that has been something that we've seen in the course of the research. And that leads to some of the things that we're going to ask for help on. I also, with my students, and I have a few folks who have been in my classes that are in here, cybersecurity is a risk management function. It just happens to be technology. But when it comes to decision making, it's all about risk. And I've served on boards of directors of several companies and organizations. And I'll tell you, the boards that are making decisions are not making it based on, oh, this is cool tech. No, they're making it because of things like, how do I increase the value proposition for my organization? How do I maintain competitive advantage? How do I minimize the risk for my stakeholders and shareholders? How do I maximize profitability, competitive advantage, positioning in the market? They're not thinking about the actual tech. They're thinking about risk and the mission. We need to, from a community, we never should lose sight of the fact that ultimately cybersecurity is about risk and risk management. And then finally, as a combat veteran who's got 3 combat tours under my belt, and if there's any soldiers out there, this airman would have had 7 hash marks on my right sleeve had the Air Force continued that symbology. But I learned in the military that he or she that tries to get risk to 0 ends up broke, disappointed, and defeated. You can never get risk to 0. It's important that you can manage it though. You need to be able to measure risk, quantify it, qualify it, and try to manage it. That's the acme of skill, and that also is something that I'm going to touch on in a subsequent slide. So these are planning assumptions that we've made as part of this research project. Show of hands, does anybody not like any of these? All right, I'm staring into bright lights, but I can see you all. I don't see any hands, so I'm going to assume that you think these are good. All right, so anybody have any comments, immediate comments on this? Yes, sir. Could you use a mic so I can hear you, please? Thank you.
Yes, it's a quick question. Before you mentioned measuring risk, my question is, can you measure risk actually? Other than, I don't know, trying to establish impact, probability impact,
We are
components.
Thank you for the question. One of the things that we're trying to do, and some of my colleagues have been doing some research on, yes, measuring risk and then also qualifying it. Where I think we see some deficiencies though is things like, how do you determine the risk appetite? And if you take one of my classes, I can show you one of my great charts that I've got from things where you take like recovery point objectives, RTO, and stuff like that to help define your risk appetite. So there are some studies that my team has done and continues to do, and you can go to sei.cmu.edu and just type in risk management, and our knowledge base will pop up and you can go take a look at some of that research. But thank you for that. And you, ma'am.
Yeah, quick question. So yes, there are different types of risk, one of which is systemic risk.
Mm-hmm.
And systemic risk cannot be mitigated, it has to be avoided because of the whole system. So I guess the question I'm asking is whether someone has stepped back and look at not just, well, what's my appetite for risk, but which of these things in this ecosystem would represent systemic risk that has to be avoided.
You talk like a chief risk officer, and we do teach the Chief Risk Officer certification course at the Heinz College. One of the things is as part of this research that we realized at the end of 23 was we didn't have very good measures with its vast diverse cyber ecosystem for determining systemic risk. Some of the research that we've done has pointed to things that could be systemic risk issues. For example, Unified Extensible Framework Interface, or UEFI, which we've discussed elsewhere here in the RSA. For those who don't know what UEFI is, it's the software that's running on the firmware, the chips on the boards. And there's a significant supply chain risk there because we have four major vendors, and there's an ecosystem that's very finite, below 10 providers of that software, but they reuse a lot of code that comes from sketchy sources sometimes. And there's no tooling that's available in the marketplace to quickly scan that. And as you take a look at the AI systems that are out there, on like an NVIDIA board, you've got lots and lots of different processors on there. So is UEFI a systemic risk? That's part of the study as well. Last question before I move on, okay? Yes, sir.
If I see risk as a multiplication from probability and impact, probability is something, it's a term out of statistics. Humans are pretty bad in statistics out of the box, and that's one of the reasons why there are so many bad decisions. Did you had a look into humanizing, or let's say, how to make humans understand the mechanics behind the risks?
Your Jedi skills are really important and really good. I hope that you're not on the dark side. But I'll tell you what, hold that question because I'm going to address that here in a subsequent slide. But your Jedi skills are really good. You've read into my soul. I'm concerned. All right, so I made this chart, just proving that a general officer can still do his own graphics. And what I did is I took, based on our research, the top 70 different issues that kept on popping up with the research as we were going through. And we've been doing the research working across our network of friends in industry, academia, government, military, and such. At the center of it all, the weighting was more towards risk. But it really depends on who you talk with, because everybody has a different lens in which they look at issues. So AI popped up, after ChatGPT popped up in the headlines, and everybody started cheating on their tests and term papers. Why are you laughing over there? Are you guilty? No. Okay. All of these things are part of the challenges that we are facing. And from a weighting standpoint, we could debate over an adult beverage, the weighting on this. But I think as you take a look at just these top 70, all of these touch upon a different issue that we all tackle from time to time. All right, so I'm going to spend most of my time on this slide. And I want to walk you through this. Because as we took a look at all the stuff that we were finding as part of this research project, we started binning them, putting them into little bins that we can consider like work areas. What do we need to do as far as research as we're putting together that research agenda? Problem areas where we think we can do better as a community. So we did 7 of them. And initially it was 5, but we added comprehension and consilience after we did our first pass through our research. And I'll get to those at the end. Let me start with awareness. First of all, awareness is more than just user education. How many of you guys are satisfied with that annual cyber security training that you probably have to do in your organization? Geez, that's swell, isn't it? It's really sharpening the workforce to do that once a year. Our research indicates that a one and done is ineffective. But gamification, where you have continually positively reinforcing, gamification and other technologies can have a better impact. We define awareness, and I'm referring to my note cards here because I want to be accurate with this. And that's why I'm wearing my glasses. Normally I don't wear glasses, but I have an age-related disability. I can't read up close anymore. So awareness is empowering people to thrive in a cyber-enabled society. That's how we're defining it. I'll repeat that for you. Awareness is empowering people to thrive in our cyber-enabled society. Our research indicates that most people are not aware of the fact that they are cyber operators. They think cyber operators are the folks, the nameless, faceless people who work in a SOC, a Security Operations Center, or in a server room somewhere. It's somebody else, not them. No. We need to change the conversation and the identity. We talk here at RSA about identity is critical for zero trust. Oh, wait a minute, we talked about zero trust last year. Now we're talking AI. Zero trust is still really important as a security strategy, and identity is critically important everywhere. But if you don't identify as a cyber operator, you're missing the boat because you are a target. You've got data that you control. Just looking around here, all of us are carrying multiple computers on us. I got one in my back pocket. I got a couple there in my bag. I'm a computer operator. I'm a cyber operator. So are you. If you're doing online banking, you're a cyber operator. If you're Zooming or doing a FaceTime or pick your favorite online video teleconference, guess what? You're transmitting data, information, a commodity. You're a cyber operator. We need to increase the awareness of all cyber operators and protecting the data. Many folks aren't even aware of the value of their data. Data is a commodity. The famous, now famous economist statement that data is the new oil. Tuhill appends to that, but software is the engine. We need to improve our awareness. We need to think beyond enterprise IT. And we need to develop better tools to enable our people to understand and measure and manage their risk when connected and when disconnected as well. We also need to evolve our education. And I'll give you an example of one of the suggestions that we have. Here in the United States, we have the National Cyber Centers of Excellence, the Center of Academic Excellence. different universities all around the country and other educational institutions clamor to get that seal of approval from NSA and DHS that says they're a center of academic excellence in cyber. But you know, all you have to do is have a course in cybersecurity, and not every student has to take that. And not every computer scientist has to take that course. We need to revamp that program, in my view. Every single student ought to be taking a cybersecurity course. Because you know, here in America, I believe every computer scientist and software developer should take a cyber course. But I also think everybody who's taking a business course or a business major, you know, we need to have business people who understand the power of cybersecurity in protecting value and risk. Our engineers need to, our teachers need to know how to teach cybersecurity. We're never going to succeed in the K through 12 or actually from cradle to grave. We need to teach our seniors. Every student ought to be taking a cybersecurity course. That's an easy thing for us to, from a policy standpoint, move forward on to improve awareness. How about usability? There's products out there that still take over a year to train and certify on. We have different companies out there who will sell you a product, but then they're also going to say, well, if you want to get certified and trained on how to use that, that's a separate bill. And it takes a long time to go through those training programs. Steve Jobs, if he was here, he'd still be wearing the black, and he'd probably say, you got to be kidding me. It should be intuitive. It should be easy to operate. It should not have a long training time. Our usability is lacking. We propose that we have a cyber ergonomics research program. Just like we did in figuring out how to do all the switchology for the pilots and the fighter planes in the 50s and the current commercial systems, we have an ergonomics program for those folks that are in complicated vehicles like planes, fighters, commercial airliners. We have common switchology. We know where it is in the cockpit. We have the different dials and such. That's common. We understand that because we studied it and we set the standards. We don't have that in the cyber ecosystem. Is that a systemic issue? Perhaps. We think usability needs work. Cyber ergonomics is important, but we also need to have tools that are intuitive and easy to use. As we take a look at the data, I contend that over 90% of the major stunning breaches have been, some of the root causes are careless, negligent, and indifferent people, maybe. More likely, those who were overtasked and task saturated in the instructions on how to properly install, configure, operate, and maintain the complex systems that we have. We need to reduce the complexity, and we need to have an ergonomics measure that is going to be able to be measured on. Capability. Capability we call managing conditions and consequences to minimize cyber harm. Zero trust and software-defined perimeter technologies can be paired, and that, you know, new capabilities out there in our hybrid world, we've got stuff that's out there, but we're not implementing things well. As AI is fueling the different activities that we have, we need to have AI for cyber and cyber for AI as well. How do we do test and eval for artificial intelligence and machine learning systems? How do we use AI to test and eval other things? We need to have very capable capabilities. We need to be moving forward on our research for quantum computing. And we're doing some work on that right now. But where's that stack up in the priorities that are out there? Flexibility. Flexibility we define as adapt rapidly to the evolving cyber ecosystem. Some of the stuff that you see out in the basement of Moscone North and South, how many of those technologies that are out there do any of them feel stale to you, or are they all brand new and innovative? We need to continue to evolve. And things like automated fault and repair of code by the machines themselves, being able to code a system and create a system that will automatically detect faults and repair itself. Wouldn't that be swell? Somebody comes in and hacks in and tries changing something, being able to detect that on the fly and being able to fix it on the fly and have that auditability. We're doing research on that now. Do we need to prioritize that? I submit the answer is yes. What about adaptive automation, composition heuristics, self-engineering the security of software-reliant systems, using AI and some of the technologies that are out there to actually design some of the countermeasures that are out there and decide to unleash some of the powers that we have with these computational platforms to help us design some of the tools in the AI world that we don't have but we desperately need. How about visibility, expanding situational awareness and information sharing? We need to think beyond just threat detection and reaction. How do we go out there from a visibility of your own enterprise and look at, well, do I need to recapitalize that hardware or software or wetware? When does Greg become stale and needs to be recapitalized? Can you do that? Well, we think we can. We think we can with the right research. Write the code, develop the capabilities to continually scan our ecosystem to identify when those capabilities in hardware, software, and wetware atrophy over time and degrade, and then be able to respond appropriately with recapitalization efforts. Does that sound novel or different? Well, maybe. Sounds a little radical to some. Something for you all to think about. How about comprehension? Comprehension is to deepen the understanding of software-reliant systems. So, audience participation, I want a show of hands. How many of you have seen the greatest cyber movie of all time, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan? I'm pleasantly surprised by the positive signs on there. So for those who have watched that movie, thank you. I think it's the best one from a cyber perspective. For those who haven't, spoiler alert, it's over 40 years old, so it's not a spoiler alert anymore. In that movie, James T. Kirk, sometimes called Admiral, in that case he was, more commonly called Captain Kirk, acknowledges that he was a hacker in Starfleet Academy. He hacked into the Kobayashi Maru test, enabling him to get a commendation while he was a cadet at the Academy. And two, he used mad hacking skills at minute 52 in the movie he understood how things work on a starship. He explained it to Lieutenant Savick, played by Kirstie Alley, before 3 Men and a Baby and Cheers. He had his back against the wall. The antagonist in the movie, Khan, the villain, had already crippled the Enterprise, his ship, and was threatening Kirk and his crew with death. He says, "Give me the Genesis data." Once again, this is a cyber movie. Khan, the antagonist, wanted data. He wanted the data for the Genesis system. Kirk feigned, Genesis, what's that? Kirk knew he couldn't fight a superior ship using conventional means. All he had available was his wit and cyber. So in that movie, he turned to Spock, and the only time he really raised his voice at Spock, he said to the lieutenant, "Go get me the command codes for the USS Reliant, the ship that had been hijacked by the antagonist." And Spock said, "The command codes? He's very intelligent. He's probably changed them." Kirk raised his voice and said, "Do it. It's all we got." And the young lieutenant said, "I don't understand." Kirk said, "You have to understand how things work on a starship." Spot came back, it was 16309. Look it up. I've got it on my phone. I can show you out in the hall. They put in 16309, dropped the shields on the other ship. Scotty had powered up 2 phaser banks. They shot off 2 shots. That's all they had. Drove the Reliant away, crippled. Kirk used cyber to save the Enterprise. He used the default password that Khan did not change. He understood how things work. Comprehension is important, and too many folks do not know how things work. And as a result, we assume way too much risk. Finally, consilience. Consilience is a fabulous new word for me, but it's been around since the early 19th century. Consilience is the principle that evidence from independent, unrelated sources can converge to support a single conclusion. We're an interdisciplinary group. We've got folks in here that some are lawyers, some are software engineers, some are engineers, some are liberal arts majors, some are artists. We come together, and if we want unity of effort, we have to do it through consilience. We have to be looking at bringing everybody together, all the different disciplines, seemingly disparate and not connected. If we want to gain greater insight across the cyber ecosystem, we have to have a means of consilience. So we're finishing up here because I've got like 7 minutes left. 8, all right, so my internal clock is off. But I'm on East Coast time still. All right, so now audience participation. I'm gonna do a couple of polling. So, how many folks think this first sentence is fact? Okay, just give me, you can say fact or BS, okay? Fact? All right, how many say BS? BS, okay. All right, second one, fact? BS, okay. Third one, fact? BS. Come on, this audience participation here. Enjoy the ability to yell out BS, okay? Creating a zero trust network architecture is the highest cost driver in implementing my strategy. Fact? BS. My research indicates 83% or-ish of the cost of a successful implementation is actually figuring out what is my data, who should see it, and under what terms and conditions and entitlements I have. But so many organizations will go out and say, oh, I got to create a new architecture. Yeah, but you don't even know what kind of data you have yet. Most of the cost is actually with figuring out your data. And then the last one, my annual cybersecurity awareness training program is great and makes me better. BS. All right, come on, a little bit louder in the next one. Okay, so I want you to stop wearing that cyber kick me sign. I want you to help out and join us in this research project. So here's some lessons learned, and you're gonna get copies of all these slides. Cyber hygiene does work, but you gotta think differently. So look at things like gamification and change the frequency. A one and done never works. Flip the narrative from compliance to how does this give me competitive advantage in a highly contested environment? On usability, put them in your requirements. I don't want to be able to have to take another year to train somebody on how to use a tool. I don't want to be billed twice for a tool and the training that comes with it. Tell folks what your requirements are from an ergonomic standpoint. And oh, by the way, you can look up the International Standards Organization has some basic guidance out that might prove to be helpful. And then take a look at when you're doing your cost-benefit analysis, factor in how long will it take before my workforce is able to use this to maximum effect. And then also, don't forget open source stuff. Too many folks are going to go out and get vendor lock-in when maybe open source is going to be a much better and more agile approach. Some other things. A lot of folks talk about memory safe code. No code is safe, so call it memory safer. Rust and Go is safer, but it's not safe. No code is safe. You've got to have good coding discipline, DevSecOps, all of that will make it safer too. But just because you're using Rust and Go doesn't mean that it's safe by design. The design really matters. Make sure that you're also protecting your APIs. I'm glad this year finally people are starting to talk about securing APIs. Should have been here 5 years ago when I was talking about that. And on the AI, remember, AI should enhance the humans, not necessarily replace the humans whole hog. And then when it comes to data-driven timely measures of capabilities, effectiveness, and ROI, tell them what your standards are. You know, if you're going out and you're contracting for something, show folks, hey, this is part of my requirements. And then here's things I want you to do now. This is part of your homework assignment. Help join with our research project. But if you are in a position where you can invest in that, please do. I want you to make sure that you're including AI and ML into your cyber lens and calculus, as well as outside of enterprise IT, your IoT, your operational technology, all these things that I put in here. And as you are looking at your systemic risk calculus, all of this has part of the play. And for those folks who are really good at math, and I have several folks, mathematicians on my team, they're doing the differential equations to try to figure out how to create capabilities that make it a little bit easier, based on certain planning assumptions, to be able to measure and quantify and qualify risk. Now, some other things, don't give up on zero trust. It's not a buzzword, it's a strategy, not something you buy. Digital twins can be good. And then don't forget the human-machine teaming aspects. Don't forget the wetware. And when we're successful, these are the things that we think we'll see in our measurements and how our research goes. And because I'm at RSA, I'm obliged to put up this slide. So next week, I want you to, as you're going home, think about some of the stuff I talked about today, but tell me what you think. What things did I not talk about that you think I should be talking about? And what things should be in our research agenda? I really sincerely want you to email me at our account and tell us what you think. Where should we be investing research into? And then tell me what you think of our taxonomy of those 7 bins that we've put in. By the end of the month, well, I want you to, once again, think about what did we miss? And by the end of September, I want you to take some of these things that we've shared already and make sure that they're already part of your construct. Okay? And with that, here's how you can contact us. And I thank you for being a great class today. And with that, with whatever time we have left before Alicia, and I think she's warming up downstairs. Any last questions before everybody makes the mad dash down to the first floor to get the seats with Alicia? Yes, Gentry. I'll repeat the question for everybody. Gentry wanted to know if Ricardo Montalban was the best choice, and the answer is yes. Ricardo Montalban was the original Khan in the original series, and yes, that was, in fact, not a latex chest. He actually did a lot of push-ups every day. So he was very fit and a good villain. All right, guys, thanks so much. Be safe, get home safely. Appreciate you.